Gerald Celente, you've got the floor on trends. I don't want to sit here and ask all the questions. Geopolitical, what's going on in the world? Can we turn it around? I think the biggest issue is, not that I'm some tough guy, but that people have never been in fights. They've never been robbed. They've never seen corruption. They have no street smarts now. We live in such an insulated, TV-based fantasy land that it's infected the ruling class as well. And, you know, people are either super smart and dialed in, or they're totally dumb. And I see an acceleration of that division. Gerald Celente.
Well, you know, I'd like to also, you know, just follow up on what you were talking about and how could it change. You know, I've been on virtually every TV show in the country, Oprah, the Today Show, Good Morning America, you name it. And I've been to your studios. And your studios are far above most of them. And I know the dedication that you have. So when you ask people, what can you do to help change? There's no show like yours. There's your website, the information, the people you have, your staff that is so dedicated, and the stories that they write every day. It's one of my first go-to websites. And I travel the world on websites, from China Daily to Fars to Al Jazeera to Haaretz, you know. But Alex Jones' website, Prison Planet, has information that's written in ways and presented that virtually nobody else does. So people do have to understand the dedication that you and your staff have to help change us and put us in, as the word that you keep using, is in a more moral direction. You know, and I'm the last guy to say, you know, that I played it straight all the time and been the perfect guy. You try to advance yourself as you learn more and try to be better at what you're doing, in terms of, it's about self-respect. You know, I don't want to pass out of this planet with having, you know, any dark blemishes that I've done intentionally. So I really urge everyone to do what they can to keep promoting what you're doing, because you're one of the few voices out there, and you have the chutzpah and the cojones to say it the way it is.
Well, you too, my brother. I mean, I was just doing mid-air refueling to fund our operation. I just wanted to, you know, go back to the public and explain to them this is high quality, but also they can build whatever they want by supporting it. And that's what you've always hammered on for 30 years as a consultant, lobbyist, the biggest corporations, to the public, you name it, is we literally build the world by our choices. That's why folks have got to become subscribers to the Trends Journal. That's why they've got to support DrudgeReport.com, WorldNet Daily, anything that's independent, anything that has a moral compass, anything that isn't totally obsessed with evil. And that's what it comes down to, is how do we turn this around?
Again, it's about self-respect, and it's happening. Yes, there are a lot of losers out there. And to me, by the way, that show last night in Washington, it was a pickup from the Grammys, you know, about the same stupid level. But there are a lot of people that care, and you're a historian. You know that the revolution began with very few people in America. And even at the height of it, a lot of people didn't support it. So it can happen with people that care. And that's really what it comes down to. And now on to the geopolitics. There was a line that Obama threw out there that people should, it just pushed him right through. He made the distinction that how we were going to have a deal with Iran. And Iran, it's all about business. And you saw Rouhani over there in Davos. It's about business. 70 million people there. The country's been laying dormant. And the multinationals want to get in there, as the oil companies do. So it's a business deal. Let's get it straight. But he threw two lines in there, and you could see how the deal was made. He called Israel, quote, a Jewish state. That was the one that they're pushing for now. And number two, boom, right in like that. And we're going to support those Syrian rebels. So he made a deal with Israel, and he made a deal with Saudi Arabia and the Arab Little League. Because the Arab Little League are the ones that also, by the way, there was a great one I was on with the Washington bureau chief of Al Jazeera right before the Libyan war on China Today. And you got to see this guy freak out at the end when he was telling us why America has to attack Libya. And I said to him, listen, you haven't answered any of my questions in an hour. I'll tell you what, you want to go to war with Libya? Pack up your crap and take your wife and your kids and yourself and go fight the war. Don't you dare tell us what we as Americans should do. And you mentioned Washington. Could you imagine Obama or Clinton or Clintons or little Georgie Bush or Gates or the rest of them going up to George Washington, a guy that was out there on the front lines, and saying to him, you know, George, you're full of baloney about these foreign entanglement nonsense. We're going to do what we want and get involved in any other country's business. So I'm going back to Obama again, throwing the line out to Syria. They just cut a deal with the Arab League to keep this destabilization going. And when you look at Saudi Arabia, the reason they're against a deal with Iran, look at oil prices. We're having one of the coldest winters we've had, and oil prices are still staying low. There's a flood of product on the market at a time when the economies are going down. So you can see where the war is heading.
That's right. Iraq just said they're going to flood the market. That's one reason they set up Saddam, is he was trying to pay off his debts, flooding the market back in 1990.
Exactly. And then again, tying it all together economically, I've made this very clear before. You're seeing the manufacturing index coming out of China. It's down. You're seeing slowdowns. Oh, by the way, durable good orders came out yesterday in the U.S., and they were way off. Figure it out. Of course, by unexpectedly down in December. Well, you look at the new employment numbers in December, there were only 74,000.
So what's the bottom line? They're going to start turning down the QE. How much you think they're going to do it? What's going to happen in the next year, Gerald Celente?
Here's my forecast. You're looking at the markets already. As we're talking, they're fluctuating between almost 200 down to 120 down. The markets, Europe took a hit. They're all taking a hit. They have to flood the markets with money. They're not going to do it for a while. And you're going to see the equity markets continue to decline. Interest rates go up. The economy goes down. They're going to come out with a new scam I believe, by the end of the second quarter of this year. They're not going to call it quantitative easing. They're not going to call it stimulus. Now with Ben Bernanke out of there, maybe they'll call it Yellenomics or something for the new person, the front for the bankers. They're going to come out with another round of stimulus. They have to do it. They're going to do it in Europe. They're going to do it in China. And when they do it, you're going to see gold prices skyrocket. We believe that when they announce the next round of stimulus, which they're going to have to do, when you're looking at the numbers only, that's when you're going to see gold prices skyrocket. Our forecast is the downside of gold is only between 100 and 150. That's not a lot, because it's going to cost you $1,200 just to pull this stuff out of the market. And by the way, when you look at the Goldman Sachs gang, and they're the ones that keep driving down the price of gold, coming out with their announcements of how low it's going to be, and you look at their track record over the last 3 years, they have been off on virtually every one of them, but they're manipulating the market, as Dr. Paul Craig Roberts keeps showing everyone how they're doing it. And if you don't think they're manipulating the markets, guess what? They manipulated the LIBOR markets. They sets interest rates at the tune of some $700 trillion.
Well, it's on record. They're manipulating all the markets. It's all rigged.
It's a fact. They're manipulating the Forex markets. Those are the currency markets. It's a fact. So the fact is that when gold prices go up, they're going to try to drive them down. But here's what's different. I bought my first buy of gold at $187.50 an ounce back in the late 70s. I also bought it at the highest point of the trading day, the day it collapsed, at $875. It closed at $850. The next day it went down $50. Here's what's different. Back then, you didn't have physical demand that's skyrocketing throughout Asia and the rest of the world, even in the United States. The mints are running 24 hours a day in Austria. They can't keep up with demand for physical metal. That didn't happen in 1980. I was there. Back in 1980, China wasn't buying like they are now. Now the largest buyer of physical metals. China was just getting off the Mao trip. They had no GDP. India, no, they weren't buying much either. Russia, how much is Russia buying now? Back then, everything east of Berlin was locked in.
No, absolutely. They can only suppress it so long. That's why I've never sold an ounce of gold or silver I've bought, and I'm totally confident. But expanding on that, Gerald, speaking of the Mao trip, people are over the globalist, big government, fake neoliberal, neocon garbage. People, all the polls show, 6% approval rating for Congress, Obama plunging. What will the establishment do to get itself out of this?
Again, it goes back to that line he threw out about Syria. When all else fails, they take you to war. I've been writing about this look, go around the world. You have a civil war going on in Egypt, one going on in Turkey. It's a civil war. You have one in Yemen, one in Bahrain. The Saudi Arabians are freaking out. Their poverty levels are skyrocketing. Their income is declining. You have a civil war in Libya thanks to those wonderful women, Hillary Clinton, Samantha Powers, and Susan Rice, that started that war, egged Obama into that time-limited, scope-limited kinetic action, a civil war in Syria. You have riots going on continually that are not making the news. The pitchfork movement in Italy, the people in Greece.
While we fight to retain our liberty, while we fight to expose globalism, we have to realize we're talking about a very powerful combination of power.
Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the InfoWar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones.
Again, final segment here with Gerald Celente. Gerald, I've got so many questions and things to raise, but you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to ask you what else you think is front and center and really, really important.
Again, you know, as I was just saying, take a look what's going on in Thailand. People haven't left the streets now in 2 months. And then you go over to look what's going on in Cambodia. The people that are tired of working for $61 a month, and the police are beating the hell out of them, but they're not leaving the streets. The same thing in Bangladesh. How can you forget what's going on over there in Japan? Abenomics, brilliant. Dump tons of money into the system. The exports are way down, and it's not doing anything. But what is happening is that he keeps increasing the tension between Japan and China. So, and then you look what's going on down there in Argentina. Oh, yeah, their pesos collapsed. The people are out in the streets. Go over to Brazil, same thing. The people are tired of being poor, and they're tired of the corruption. What I'm saying, Alex, and I've said this, and now everybody's starting to kind of pick it up now in the media, it looks a lot like it did before World War I. A very unnecessary war, and the reason you got in there was because you had a lot of stupid people that were in charge, both in the military and in government. And you have the same thing going on now. You got losers.
You have just hit the key, is that I look at the political elite now, and they're real good at robbing us and real good at saying they know everything, but really, they've got horrible families, they're horrible people, they're stupid, and the public is either dumb or awake. I mean, this is a disaster. And I agree with you. A lot of historians, and you were saying this years ago, but now they're saying, yeah, get ready for World War I, World War II. The climate that we see lining up says World War III.
Exactly. It was the top trend that we had last year. Top trends of 2013 was war and showing the lead up to it. That's my greatest concern, because you saw what happened last night with Obama. Everybody, you know, I wrote about it in the last Trends Journal, how I almost went broke back in the early 2000s. 2003, the top trends I wrote. Now, remember, this is, you know, it comes out in December of 2002. The war just started it wasn't even a year old.
Absolutely. We're out of time. I'm going to have you back on. No, you predicted it all. I want to have you back on, but in the minute and a half we got left, what do you make of Obama and the media trying to sell the idea of him as a dictator, that then he can fix everything? I mean, this is getting crazy.
Well, again, this is what the setup is. This is what I'm trying to say. You saw how they championed this guy last night. It was one of the longest rounds of applause of any State of the Union. When they mentioned the troops, they mentioned war. All we need is one little terror thing. You saw what happened in Boston when they called martial law, when the police went into people's houses without warrants. They can have a false flag or a real terrorist strike, and the flags, the made in China American flags will come out, and people will be tying yellow ribbons around everything. That's my greatest fear, and that's what the people have to stand up to, as they did when they wanted to take us to war with Syria, and say no.
Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?